ourselves so we can understand basically what is your perspective on cybersecurity and your background and from a professional point of view as well.
With pleasure. So I'm Yul Bahat, and I've been in cybersecurity since I was 18.
Okay.
I was trained in the Israeli military.
Okay.
In cybersecurity, and after that I was mostly a consultant working for Fortune 500 companies, governments, banks all over the world. I've probably worked in every single continent in the last 15 years.
Wow.
And in 2011 I came to Paris.
Okay.
To head the cybersecurity operations of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD.
OECD, yeah.
And I was there for 4 years, really building that team, that operation, almost from scratch. And last year I decided to go on my own adventure and created my own company, my own consulting company, Securitude Cyber Solutions. And that is what I'm doing today.
Excellent, excellent. Can you tell us more about the purpose of Securitude, therefore?
Yes. Today what we do is, mostly what we do is we provide managed services for small businesses and startups. Meaning we actually take control on their cybersecurity efforts and their IT administration. Basically our philosophy is that they need to focus on what they do best, whether it's a French school that we have or a gaming startup or whatever it is. They focus on their business and we focus on cybersecurity, and they can be in peace that that's taken care of.
Okay, thanks for that. Just to get back a bit in, that moment is your own history where you were working in Israel. Can you explain me a bit more about, because the audience might be interested into the kind of landscape, the kind of environment, professional environment in which you were working? I mean, can you pinpoint kind of difference into your practice, into your approach of the market, into the kind of training type of protocol or structure that you guys got in Israel comparing
Definitely.
to Europe?
It's very different, I can tell you that.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of reasons for that. First is, like I said, same way I was trained in the army, a lot of other people were trained in the army.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a lot of awareness in Israel about cybersecurity. So a lot of people come out of the army when they're 21, 22 and start their professional careers in whatever they do. And they come with the knowledge and with the awareness and with the idea that this is something that needs to be taken care of.
Okay, that's already critical in a way, that the criticality of the...
Exactly. So, obviously Israel being Israel, just by being an Israeli company, especially by being an Israeli bank or a government agency, you are a target
okay.
of attack constantly. Statistically speaking, for the last probably 20 years, the Israeli government has been on the top 10 most targeted entities in the world.
Okay.
Do you think it's more culture thing in Israel for cybersecurity? It's kind of because when you compare here or France or UK to Israel, you say it's not the same level of trust. So do you think it's more culture thing, culture based?
Again, it is cultural. It's related to a lot of other things. It's not only cybersecurity, but security in general. It's in the minds and the daily lives of everybody there. Yeah. So it's much more present. It's much more constant. When the other thing that I realized, this was one of the biggest changes or biggest difficulties for me to work in Europe as opposed to working in Israel, is again the army. And nothing to do about that. You come out, and when you go to work, you're used to work in a hierarchy. You have your boss and they have their boss, and if your boss tells you to do something, it's like your commanding officer.
Okay, things are very kind of structured in a way. But,
you don't question commands.
Okay.
In a way.
Okay.
It again, I'm not saying it's good, I'm saying it is what it is. And so when I went to an Israeli company and I got an executive manager saying, okay, from now on this is what's going to happen, everybody followed in line.
Okay. Okay.
It was not very easy, but relatively easy. And then when I came to Europe, and now I said, okay, this is not the case anymore, and that's where for me my personal change started. When I realized it's not enough telling people they need to do something; they need to understand why they need to do that.
Okay.
And honestly, that's where it's been a journey. It's been a 5-year journey.
Okay.
That's still going on, but this is where I am today. You know, I'm doing this podcast. I have other speaking engagements throughout the year, all of them to educate and raise awareness, because people need to know why cybersecurity is important and not just be told that cybersecurity is important.
Do you think today, because you are talking about awareness and stuff like that, if you have to give advice or tips to people, just basic people, what would be the advice for it? What would be the first basic advice you give to anybody?
It may sound stupid, but what I'm trying to teach people before specifics, before any specific security tip, is not to be blind. Not like if you do something, think, like give a half a second to think before you do it. And my number one tip, my number one message that I'm trying to get across is, if somebody asks you to do something that you don't normally do, there's probably a reason for it. So if somebody, because today I've been working a lot with people on phishing emails, and they all have this common thing. They have this common strategy. It's urgent. They tell you there's something you have to do now.
Okay.
And this is, for me, this is a trigger. If somebody tells me I have to do something now, then it means that I'm not supposed to do that. And obviously I'm not supposed to share my passwords, I'm not supposed to share my credit card, I'm not supposed to do a lot of things which people unfortunately do without thinking. It's one of the things we do in our company. We do simulations, phishing simulations. So we send our clients phishing emails, and then they click on a link, and then they get this big splashy message, you were not supposed to do that, and all of that. And no matter how simple, how obvious we make the emails, statistically speaking, 20% of the population clicks.
Will click on it. Okay.
It's amazing to see, and that's what we're trying to change. That's the environment we're trying to change.
Do you think is so we are talking about phishing campaign in my previous role? So a lot of we did this kind of simulation as well, and it's like you. It's kind of funny when you see the click rate and all this stuff. What do you think is most targeted population inside of a company? Is it mostly the CEO? Is it can be anybody?
Okay, it can be anybody. We used to think, when I say we, I'm like cybersecurity professionals, quote unquote, that you have to protect the VIPs, the CEOs and the management, the C-level management. I don't believe that anymore.
Okay.
Especially because so when I came to work for the OECD in 2011, it was my first experience actually working for an organization, not as a consultant, but really working as an employee.
Okay.
And that's when I realized for the first time in my life that management they are not the people in power. Secretaries are the people in power. Administrative personnel in general, they are the people in power, and they are today, for me, the biggest target or the biggest threat to a company.
It's mostly because they are using a lot of confidential information, or
yes, they have access to a lot of confidential information. They are so overworked in many cases that they don't think. They have 1,000 emails to go through. They just rush through. And they are underappreciated, so they don't care, honestly. So yes, for me, they are the ones you need to really protect and educate them.
Okay. What kind of recommendation you are giving to your customer for specifically if you are talking back to the administrative people who are kind of handling a lot of personal information? What kind of control or stuff can you put in place to help to protect the maximum you can these people? Not necessarily something complex.
I understand. But so what we try to do today. Okay, so I said 14 years I've been working for enterprises, and this year I've been working with more smaller businesses. And what I came to realize is that first of all you have to do the basics before anything else. Before you install this new and fancy technologies that are out there every day, you have to take care of the basics. You have to take care of as an administrator, as the one in charge of the system, making sure everything is patched, making sure that all the systems are up to date, that there's an antivirus installed. Really the basic stuff. And that's what it surprised me when I started this, but that's what most of the stuff we're doing today. We're taking companies and we're bringing them to a level where we can start really working on security proper. Then the next level is definitely education. For me, that's that's the second most important. And when you have education, when people are starting to understand why this is important, then you can work with them to start putting the controls. So if it's web browsing filtering, or if it's anti-spam and anti-phishing, or if it's advanced endpoint protection, again, there are so many solutions out there. And they are important, but you need to get there. And that's a mistake. I see a lot of companies, big companies, or small and big companies do. They rush and they buy the next best thing, the next buzzword or the current buzzword, and they pay a lot of money for it, and they install it, and then that's the last time they ever think about it, hear about it.
Never use it as well.
They never use it.
I get the same issue a lot of companies as well. So, and you're right. A lot of people are just selling solutions based on marketing campaigns, something what they think is good. So, do you think it's more so if we kind of putting the reflection back a bit forward? So, do you think it's more because it's a lack of strategy and how you can create a good cybersecurity strategy inside of a company, or that's this kind of behavior of buying the first stuff coming from the market?
It's both. But you're definitely right. That's also something that a lot of companies don't have today, and that's a cybersecurity strategy or plan. But it's getting better. If you compare the number of CISOs, the Chief Information Security Officer, today as opposed to 5 years ago, it's amazing. I would say now most big companies today have a CISO, or at least planning to have one in the next 2 to 3 years, and they bring him with the specific task of creating this kind of strategy or policy. In lack of policy, you just do what you think is best, and then you just end up buying stuff. And coming back to what I said earlier. You have to have someone that knows security. That it's not, again, security is, we call it an art and a science. It's something I spent the vast majority of my life, getting expertise in. It's not something you just start.
Bump in.
And I bumped it. So I had the privilege and to be trained formally. And that's something very Israeli, but that's not something that in Europe, especially, that's not something that's available. And I think I read last week that there's about 1.5 million vacancies in cybersecurity today, unfilled, because there's just a shortage of people without the proper experience and training. And again, it is what it is.
Is that in your curriculum? I mean, cybersecurity as a student. I mean, when did you start to get into that? I'm talking, on the more general aspect, of the system in Israel?
So like I said, I was first introduced to cybersecurity in the army.
Okay.
It was really my first time. I didn't even think about it before.
Okay, so 18 years old.
Yes,
yeah,
18
that's
years
it.
old,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
Then when I went ahead and I did my BA in computer science,
Okay.
I had at least 2 courses on cybersecurity.
Okay, so that was definitely into the.
Yes, it's definitely into the curriculum.
Yeah.
And today I am also teaching
Okay.
cybersecurity.
In Israel.
No, in
Here
Paris.
in France, Paris. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly for MBA students.
Okay.
So it's not. Obviously I'm not training them to be cybersecurity experts, but they are training to be managers, and they need the background. They need the basic understanding of what cybersecurity is.
It's not too late. I mean, no, I'm not trying. I'm just replaying here about develop.k,
Sure.
but at MBA level, basically, from what I understand. I mean, what can you say about the interaction that you're having with them? Are you thinking, well, the level of maturity is not there, or you just should have started a bit earlier, or is that kind of okay?
No,
Let's take it as it is, yeah.
It's a good place to start. It's a good place to start. Ideally, yes, we want to start earlier, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not true. I don't know about Europe. In Israel, there are programs now for high school children. Again, basic stuff. Nothing fancy, nothing. But there are programs teaching them. It's mostly around how to behave online, what to do, what not to do. What are the repercussions of being online? The internet remembers everything.
True, yeah.
It's one of the things I do to my students. I have them Google themselves.
Wow. Okay. Interesting, yeah.
Yes. Well, and they are shocked. They are shocked to see what Google knows about them, what Google knows about their friends, their colleagues, their co-workers, pictures. So again, we try to do it as early as possible. And we're going there. You see it's happening more and more.
So here's a way for me, I mean, as a consumer, as an individual who's kind of, getting into that world of cybersecurity to understand it from an individual point of view. It's like, okay, the goal should be for me to try to delete, erase all the things that happened in the past. Is this possible, or should I only aim for kind of limited control, kind of delete myself from Facebook,
right.
or I'm not putting any pictures, and therefore I'm into another kind of network, because nowadays everybody is either on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever it is. I mean, what?
There's a technical answer and there's a philosophical answer.
Okay, well,
the technical answer is that you can delete. It's impossible to delete.
Okay, that's a fact. I mean,
that's a fact, yes.
Okay.
There is a European legislation.
Okay.
It's called the right to be forgotten. Technically speaking, it should be possible, but the fact is that it's not. Yes, maybe Google will delete or stop referencing you, but it doesn't stop anybody from taking screenshots, and it doesn't stop anybody from saving stuff that you put online before.
Okay, so it's kind of unlikely that
exactly.
you cannot. Yeah.
Philosophically, you will get different answers from different people. I have probably an extreme view.
Okay.
To the other side of what you may think. I am a very public person.
Okay.
I have all my Facebook profiles, all my Twitter profiles, they are all open and public. I have pictures of myself in compromising situations. They are out there in the internet. I am fully aware of that.
Okay.
My philosophy is that as long as I'm aware that they are there, and I don't, it's not that I don't mind that they will be found and used, but I'm willing to accept that risk. I think that's the main point. It's about everything in cybersecurity. It doesn't matter if you're a small company or a person or a startup, whatever you do. It's all about what we call risk management. And for me, the risk is that somebody finds out these pictures, for example, and I am willing to accept that risk. For me, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
If you think, and that's coming back to what are my tips that I'm giving my clients and my students and whoever. This is a process you have to go by yourself. You have to go through it. Think, what will happen to me if this gets out? What will happen to me if, these pictures?
Or this little video of me drinking rum
exactly.
just before Christmas is
and
uploaded on. Yeah.
What will happen if my future employer will see this? If your answer to this is oh no, then like you said, don't put it out there. That's it. It's as simple as that. Don't put it out there. Make sure you don't.
Yeah, compromise yourself. Yeah.
If you say I'm willing to accept that risk and I will handle it when it comes, then do it.
Okay, and you don't. I mean, the handle side of things. Basically, it's for me. It's as well a new thing. It's as well a new way of putting things in perspective and reacting, because it's so really new. I mean, I was putting this example of Facebook. Basically, I'm not on Facebook myself anymore. Okay, for the last year and a half. Just before Christmas, we had a little kind of drink, and one of the guests who were drinking with me takes a video of me drinking a nice, sip of rum. It was a new one, by the way, a Jamaican one. Very good. And next day, my partner, Will, X put this little video of 30 seconds of you drinking rum on his Facebook.
Right.
So there was nothing to be ashamed of. That was me drinking the rum yesterday, but I wasn't aware that I was filmed, and B, I wasn't aware at all that the stuff gonna be uploaded on Facebook. So when you are talking about handling this kind of thing, it's gonna take a lot. I mean, that means that basically my community and the people I'm interacting with gonna be bind to a certain kind of rule protocol.
Yes, definitely.
That I've got to discuss in a way beforehand. Okay, guys, this is what's gonna happen. If that happens, I don't want this to be published, and so on and so on. So that putting us already into a different type of interaction with our own community that I'm discovering myself.
I see it happen all the time. I went to there's this networking event I went to.
Okay.
Not maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And it's funny you mentioned it. So it was it was strange to me when it happened. But so the very first sentence, so the woman heading the event gave this introduction.
Okay.
Blah, 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 and then she gave this sentence that we are going to upload pictures to Facebook. If you don't want your pictures up there, come to us and tell us not to do it. So we turned the roles. Now you have. It's your responsibility to say I don't want it, instead of agreeing to
by sign. Yeah.
So that's funny. However, there is another story. Again, because there is so little control, and there's another story. It's a really funny story. Well, for me, not the people involved. I have a friend who realized that he's working in a big insurance company.
Okay.
And the New York Times did a piece on their company, and they had a picture from a board meeting.
Okay.
Somebody took a picture from a board meeting, and it was published, on big page New York Times. And this guy suddenly realizes the photographer caught him in the middle of eating a croissant.
Yep. Well, cyber person we are. Yeah.
And so this board meeting, people in suits, very serious, and him in the corner with a croissant in his mouth.
Yeah.
New York Times, and again, he had absolutely no idea.
And no control on it as well.
The shot has been taken. He had no idea where it would be used, and that's my point. Because you have, that's my point. That's why my philosophy is what it is. Because I don't have control over what is and not out there. I prefer to take actions mostly on it will be out there basis.
Okay.
There is such a thing called, common name is privacy islands. You're saying, okay, this is something that is very important and should never be out there. So it can be confidential stuff, health-related information, or my credit card number, or my password, or whatever. These are things that I hold very near and dear.
Okay, yeah. Picture of my kids, or
Exactly.
yeah.
And that way I can invest my energy and my resources protecting that.
Okay.
Okay, instead of trying to protect everything, which is bound to fail.
Okay.
And it's not a promise. It's not an assurance that this wouldn't get out. But again, I'm doing my best, and this is a risk I'm willing to accept because I know I did my best to protect it. And other than that, pictures of me can go wherever I want.
That's interesting. I would assume that the same principle apply to company, therefore, in terms of approach. Company will choose the type of critical stuff that they want to invest in.
That's definitely the world we live in, and in opposed to where we were 15 years ago. There's a lot. You always get a discussion of what is the difference between IT security, information security, and cybersecurity. So some people will say it's all the same thing, just a buzzword, and this is how we call it now. And that's not my opinion. My opinion that we used to call it IT security because we thought it was about technology, and we protected computers and we protected servers. And then we evolved and we thought, okay, this is about information. So we protected the information. And now we're in a world where we know it's about processes, and it's about people, and it's about information, and it's about technology, it's about everything.
So much more integrated and complex.
And the way to achieve cybersecurity levels is by risk management, and it's exactly that. It's realizing, okay, this is what's important to me. If this fails, or if this report comes out, my company is ruined. So I'm going to protect this report, and I'm going to protect the people generating this report, and the server this report is stored on. Other stuff can be less protected in circles of protection or resources I commit. And once again, I come back to the difference between big corporates and small businesses. So 2 years ago, I'm standing in front of my manager. I'm telling you, I have a budget of a couple of million euros in my security team, and I need to triple it in order to get in order to reach the level we're supposed to get. And now I'm dealing with clients that tell me, okay, I have 500 euros.
Okay.
What can you do for me?
Okay.
And surprisingly, the answer is a lot.
Okay.
But it's all depends on what they consider important, what risks they're willing to take, and all of that. So we have to go through these processes. They have to understand what it is. What is their business? That's a question that a lot of people don't know.
Key at the beginning, yeah.
And then what creates the value in the business, and how much is important for us to protect it, and we go from there.
Do you have any? Because everybody is kind of on the security landscape is talking either about a solution or either about certification or standard. Do you have any standard you recommend, or some stuff you are kind of binding everything you should have in terms of cybersecurity for a company?
I love standards.
Yeah.
A lot of my work in the past has been helping companies be certified.
Yeah.
It honestly doesn't really matter which standard. The idea behind standards, if you really read into them, they don't care what you do. Most of them will not tell you you have to have this and this and this.
Yeah, sure.
What they tell you is exactly what I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They're telling you you have to understand what do you want to do. You have to have a plan, and you have to be able to prove that you are working on a plan towards that plan. And just by having that, it sounds simple, but it's really not. But just by having that, you boost your level of security by so much.
Yeah.
And you end up with documentation, you end up with processes, you end up with people who are educated, you end up with a lot of things that you didn't initially plan to end up with. And I love standards. It's not for everybody, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
But it comes a point where I would recommend it, definitely. and obviously there are some standards that you have to have. If you handle money, you have to be certified for PCI. If you handle health information, you have to be certified for HIPAA. Again, there are cases like that. But if you're not mandated by law, then there are others. The 27001, the cloud certification if you're working on the cloud.
Yeah.
There is a lot of them. Pick one, go for it. Really, I really do recommend it. Solutions exist, like I said, as the third or fourth year of the plan. And eventually you have to get it. You can't say, I'm not going to put an antivirus, I'm not going to put a firewall, I'm not going to put... You can't say, you have to have it. But it's not the first focus, but it's out there.
Because you did work on different countries in Europe. If you have to cut on the landscape of security maturity in different countries, like say UK against France, what do you think about that? What do you think? France is more involved on certain area, UK on the other? Or?
From what I'm seeing, France is maturing fast.
Okay.
10 years ago, there was almost nothing. At least, again, in terms of maturity, I'm not saying people didn't do security.
Yeah, sure.
But it wasn't this big idea that everybody thought of. And it really started to gain track fast. And there's one thing I like. It depends on where I stand. I didn't like it when I worked for a big corporation. I like it now. The entire concept of privacy councils and worker councils that exist in Europe and nowhere else, and it's amazing.
Can you elaborate on that? Sorry.
Yes,
yeah,
sure.
Please.
So in Europe, in most European countries, once a company reaches a certain size, if I'm not mistaken, in France it's 250 employees, but I'm really...
Okay.
I don't want to say the number right now. You have to have a workers' council that represents the employees in front of management, and they have official status by law.
Okay.
And one of their mandates is to handle things about privacy. So, for example, one of the biggest differences between Europe and the US is that in the US, email belongs to the company.
Okay.
And so a manager has the legal right to go over work office emails of the employee.
Okay.
As opposed to Europe, where absolutely not.
Yeah, if you could see my face.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That's a good tips.
I never realized that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously different privacy approach. Obviously.
Exactly. So privacy is a big thing in Europe, and because of that, it forced the professionals, the security professionals like us, to really think about what is necessary, what is not necessary. It's not, so when I was working, it's not that it was not possible for me to go through an employee's email if I needed to. If there was a legitimate reason for me to go through it, I would do it.
Yeah.
But I would have to justify it. I would have to think really why this is important and how it should be done properly. And again, this is processes, this is not technology. This is all cybersecurity processes. And I worked with employees, with staff members to define those processes and to define. So, coming back to what I said originally, the thing why I love cybersecurity in Europe now, today, is that it took me a while. Is that you come out of this process with everybody's agreement. You know, once you go through this, no employee, no staff member will tell you you are not allowed to do this.
Okay, the green light is completely
Exactly. As opposed, again, if although a manager in the US has the legal right to go through the employee's email, that doesn't mean the employee likes it. Doesn't mean the employee approve of it or whatever. So again, it creates maturity levels much higher in the end in Europe, because everybody's on board. Everybody knows what's going on, and it's done correctly. It's done in a processed way. The UK has a much higher level of maturity, especially in small businesses. So, in my career, my experience, so I started this company, like I said, to help small businesses have a better cybersecurity level. And I looked around, and there are companies. Okay, there are definitely companies in the market that are doing managed services. That's not a new concept. Okay, but they are done by giants. They are done by Orange, and they are done by Thales, and they are done by and they don't care about the startup or the law office or the supermarket. They just don't care. They don't even look at them. And I found bits and pieces of companies that are doing something like I'm doing today for small businesses, but really not. And then I went ahead and I looked in the UK, and there
are plenty of them.
Plenty of them. That market is mature in the UK, and that's great. That's awesome. And they have better regulations. They have better processes. They have all across the board. They have better maturity level in cybersecurity. Definitely.
Yeah, because I think the government implements this kind of it's not a legal requirement, but it's cyber essential. It's kind of best practice, best practice for cybersecurity for small or big company, doesn't matter.
Yes.
And I think you start to see the difference between UK market, French market, where people are really mature. Either when I get my experience and was working for a big American company, trying to selling a vulnerability management solution, and I was calling the guy in UK. I did both markets, UK and France. Calling the guy on UK, calling the guy on France, and when you start discussing about security with this guy, you see straightforward the difference of maturity. Just on the talk.
Yes.
The guy. That's crazy when you think about it, because you just get to see between both countries. So I don't know. It's maybe the government. So as you said, it's kind of a bit speed up now and just getting a bit more mature quickly. Talking about that, penetration testing. Can you explain a bit for people that are not initiated about it? What is it exactly? What will be good for a company of doing a pen test sometimes?
Sure. So in the more general sense, penetration testing is one kind of what we call the assessment, security assessment. So the idea is to understand right now where you are in terms of security. Okay, where again the idea is to know what the hackers know before they do something about it, or what the hacker could know, could find about you. So you, in most cases, hire an external company to treat you like they are hackers, and they try to get in your website, and they try to get in your company by finding a vulnerability, a technical vulnerability they can exploit, or most of the cases, the human element, trying to send phishing emails or trying to get access somewhere somehow. And again, it's before coming back to the idea of security strategy and security plan. You can't have a plan if you don't know where you are. It's the number one step. So coming to do a plan, you have to do it. You have to have a penetration test. You have to do an audit and assessment. Again, ideally by an external company that doesn't have obligations or
to provide evidence
to members. I used to work for a company 10 years ago probably, where I was in the audit committee, and we found very interesting things that I realized nobody wanted to hear.
That's part of the most of the time the big problem is people don't want to hear the truth because it's the truth.
Yes.
Most of the time. So how are you tackling that, for example?
Again, amazingly, they will listen to outside people. If there's a company with a track record and the brand name, and they tell you exactly the same thing that your people are telling you, it sounds different, it sounds better. So I would always recommend taking a third party for this type of work. And again, it's a specialty. I said it before. It's a specialty. People are trained to do this. This is their job, and you need to somebody that knows this job. Not everybody can do it. I personally, I know how to do it probably, but that's not my specialty, and I will not be the one doing it. There are people who are trained for this. So another type of services that we offer today in my company is simulations. I talked briefly about phishing simulations, but we also do denial of service simulations. We also do pen testing. We also do generally social engineering simulation. So we call people up.
Yeah. Can you explain to people,
Yes.
because nobody is kind of initiated for social engineering?
Sure. Social engineering, again, it's a very general sense that contains a lot of stuff. But the idea is that you make somebody do something that they're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
And phishing is one type, but you can also do it very simply by just calling a person and saying, and this is something I did before in my previous jobs. I called a bank secretary or a CEO secretary saying, "Hi, I'm from the IT department. I need to fix a problem, but I need your password right now." And the thing is, you realize if you do this job long enough, if you go to somebody and you tell them, you use your authoritative voice and very
force an action,
very businesslike, very poker face. I know what I'm doing, and people in general will just do what you tell them to do. And so again, that's another type of things, and all of these are important. All these fall under education and awareness and the stuff we really promote.
Talking about social engineering and control, so what would be your recommendation for that? If you get somebody online just trying to get your password, but this one is kind of an obvious attack in terms of social engineering, but most of people will fall on a trap anyway.
Yes.
But for something more complex, what will be the kind of the basic stuff you can do to help yourself to don't fall on trap?
So I said this before. Nothing is urgent. Nothing in this world is urgent as people make it. If you're not sure, and this is there's a saying in Hebrew. It doesn't translate as well, but I try. It says that if there's a doubt, there is no doubt. Okay. If something sounds suspicious to you, stop whatever it is you're doing, and verify. And again, nothing is as urgent as it is. If nobody needs your password now, nobody needs your clearance number now, nobody needs your checking account number now. They can wait 5 minutes. Whatever the thing is, they can wait 5 minutes for you to check. You can ask them to send you an email. You can ask if it's a phone number, if it's a phone call, ask something in writing. If it's an email, you can call back. There's a lot of things you can do, but it all starts from what I said in my very first sentence today. Stop, think for a second, and then react as you think you should react. And once you get education, once somebody like me or somebody else told you, said these words to you one time, or hopefully not one time, but once every 3 months, and it's stuck in your brain, good enough that I heard this story before. This is familiar. It's as basic as that. No technology in the world, no matter how expensive, no technology in the world will stop this. This is pure education.
You allowed me a little question about your line of business, which in Paris, basically. How do you? From my understanding, those small companies, there is a different level of maturity between France and UK, as a matter of fact. Okay. The intuition is to say the maturity is driven by an incentive, by how do you say that? An obvious benefit that those companies have or those companies can see. To play the devil advocate, I'm thinking, I can, as a small company, as a startup, I can think of the security type of protocol as a cost rather than as something that can bring me value. Because I'm saying to myself, look, I've got a new company, 5-6 people, I'm growing on a nice space or whatsoever. Why would I put money? Sorry.
It's an excellent question.
On that budget,
and it's one that I need to answer. Answer every single day, and I'll tell you from two perspectives. So first of all, the startup companies, And this is something I was very happy to find out. I found it a couple of months ago. So cybersecurity today is starting. So in companies, in large companies, cybersecurity has become a board issue. So so board members are now telling the company, this is something you need to take care of.
They know that's something that matters. That's something important to deal with.
And surprisingly enough, and this is something I found out recently, the same thing happens with startups today, coming from the investors. Investors today are telling their startup companies, you need to take care of security because I need to take care of my money.
Makes sense.
And that's been a big push in France. I'm saying this from experience from French startups that their investors, the reason I met those startups in the first place is because their investors made the connection. The investors told the companies, you need to take care of security. Here's a security guy.
Bang.
You do business.
Got it.
Okay. These are startups, and that's a very nice thing that's happening today. For the smaller companies, that's definitely my job, to make them understand the importance. It's education, but it's very effective for me to simply prove them about necessity. So all the things we did, all the simulations that I talked about, we in many cases we offer the first round for free. Because it's one of the best tools we have. If I get the CEO of a CEO, I'm talking about four, 5 people company. I'm talking about CEO. But if I get the manager to send me sensitive details, or I get his secretary or the office manager to send me sensitive details, and then I go to the CEO and show him, he understands immediately, or she understands immediately. This is money. Everything is about money. In the end, that's how you explain. This cybersecurity can cost you money. I had one company that told me straightforward, somebody hacked our website and we almost lost the business. It's just a commercial website. It's not like they stole sensitive information. But for 3-4 days, nobody could register to them, and they almost lost the business because of it. This costs money, and once I get them to realize that, then it's much simpler.
I guess so.
And what I said in the beginning, it's definitely a cost. It doesn't have to be a big investment. Whatever the budget is, I can make a difference. And that's important. That's important for them to know. I have companies that are paid. That we have contracts with for thousands monthly, and we have companies that we work on a 200 euros budget.
So that's
everything helps, and because mostly, like I said, because most of the stuff, or not the most, but basic stuff are not technological, don't require actual empathy. They require time. They require man resources, so they need to put all their people in one place for a couple of hours for me to teach them. That's an investment, yes, but they don't have to put money in it. And so again, when I tell them all these things, they accept it much easier.
Talking about data breach and all this good stuff when you get your data out there, GDPR. So can you just explain a bit? It's kind of the buzz right now. 2017 is the deadline.
No, it's May 2018.
2018,
Yes, May. Okay. So this is something that has been going around for quite a while. It's been 2-3 years in the making. But last year, 2016, it was finally approved. And this is radical. This is a revolution in Europe. Now the European Union, the European countries have declared that if you as a company hold personal information on people, on your clients, of any kind, where their names, where they live, their phone numbers, again, not sensitive information, but you have personal information on them, it is your legal responsibility to take care of it from a cybersecurity point of view. And if you get hacked and that information is stolen, and you can't prove that you did whatever you could to protect it, then you can get a fine of up to 20 million euros, depending on your size and the information that was stolen.
Percentage of revenue,
Yes, it's 4%, up to 4% of your revenues, or 20 million, the higher.
It can be a lot of money.
It can be a lot of money, and the revolution. So there's two revolutions. First, this is now a legal requirement, and second is that the regulation specifically mentions small businesses. There's an entire section on small businesses and how they are also legally bound by this regulation.
Okay, it's not only for the big corporate clients,
exactly.
Any company basically of any size.
Every company. If you're a school and you have information about your students, you are legally required to protect that information.
Okay.
And so it comes into effect May 2018, and companies are going insane trying to understand what are we supposed to do about it. And once again, coming to the standards that we talked about, there is nowhere in this regulation that tells you what you need to do.
Yeah.
It just tells you have to have a plan, you have to make sure that it's a good plan, and you have to be able to prove that you actually did what you said you're going to do. That's it. Sounds simple? Not really. But that's the reason it fits every type of company and every size. If you're a French school, if you're a little school or a little company, you don't have to do much, but you have to do it. If you're a giant corporation, there's a lot you can do, and you have to do it, and you have to invest properly. So yes, obviously it's a big thing now. Every consulting company in Europe now says we can help you with this, and honestly they can. They're not lying.
Yeah.
You need help.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like you said, everything is coming back to the risk approach and the risk appetite of the company.
Yes.
It's kind of talking about framework, standard, and all this stuff, GDPR, and I saw a lot of issues on company where they have got multiple framework like ISO 27001, GDPR, for example. A lot of similarity between both of the approach. What would be the recommendation when you are because we talk about a lot about startup, but for big corporations they have to fulfill with a lot of standard like finance. You can be SOX, for example.
Yes.
Then you can have ISO 27001. What will be your recommendation if you have to start from somewhere to align all that? Because that's a big challenge for
well, yes and no. It is a big challenge. You have to. The thing is, you have to know. You have to really know them, and again, probably that's not something you can do by yourself. So you need outside help, and I will say it over and over again. Never. It's like you say, never represent yourself in court.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Always get outside help. That said, again, because they have the same goals. So if the ISO 27001, if you have the ISMS, the information system, it's Information Security Management System in place, you can use that. If you have this in place and you can prove that you have this in place and it works, it's very easy to become GDPR compliant. It's very easy to become SOX compliant. So you have to understand the differences, you have to understand the gaps, but they are not that big.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of expertise, not a matter of investment. The ISO one is a very good standard. It's a very basic standard. It's a very good standard that covers a lot of risk management aspects, and it works for everybody. You have others like again I mentioned the PCI, which is good. There's the COVID, which is good. It doesn't matter where you start. It really doesn't. Take one, pick one, have it done well, and from then just map the gaps, and that's it. It's work. It's a work of time and expertise, but it's not difficult per se.
What are the kind of variable we trigger people to get certified, for example, based on your experience? Like,
sorry, what?
What variable trigger? Let's say somebody. What is triggering a company to be certified today for any standard? Doesn't matter.
So like I said, sometimes it's a requirement by law.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, we see it. So, a lot if you work, for example, with U.S. companies.
Yeah.
So the SOX regulations also applies to all the partners of the company. So it doesn't matter if you work in the US or not. If you're working with a US company or for a US company, a lot of the time you have to become compliant yourself. And it's very good for investments. So again, if you are able to prove that you have a risk management system in place, that means you think about risk, which is very compelling for investors. Or credit rating, depends on what, if you're a big company and you're trying to get a loan, or if you sell shares or whatever, definitely a booster for value. Those are the. I don't think there's there's no single trigger. I never saw a company that says I got hacked because I didn't have compliance. That's not the case ever. It's always a business case. Somebody else needs it.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So most of the time, because you are kind of on the business side, for example, if you are an insider, for example, you want to get your company certified or get some traction to get some cybersecurity inside of the company. What will be the advice to influence your management, or what will be the speech you can use? Because that's important. Because that's people who are struggling. Still have a bit of.
Definitely. We used to say when I used to work that the best thing that could happen to us if we get hacked. Because then we can finally prove that this is important. The next best thing is simulations. What if scenarios. We don't necessarily. So in some cases in my past, they didn't want to go through with an actual simulation because they didn't want to endanger anything. So we did tabletop simulations. We sat down with a bunch of managers and we played role-playing games. And we said, okay, imagine this just happened. What now? And we got that conversation getting on. And suddenly, again, you have a tech guy saying this will happen, and then the CFO guy says, oh no, this means our shares are cut in half. And you get them thinking. It's definitely a very good tool that we used before. Other than that, it's not a bad idea to just send them. So we created in one case an internal mailing list for managers for a certain grade and above. We send them every couple of weeks. Today in cybersecurity news, Yahoo got hacked, and
just as a reminder.
Yes, and after a while they got the point. You have to make them realize again they can lose money. Go for the money. That's the only thing they understand. Go for the money.
Do you think it's mostly because we get more kind of incident out there on social media, on media in general? That's why people realize they need to be protected on the cybersecurity side. I
think one good thing that happened in the last couple of years that there is much more visibility and much more transparency today. So it used to be the case that companies never ever admitted they were hacked. That's not the case anymore. A lot of it because it's now in many cases a legal requirement for them to notify. So if you're a public company, you have a legal requirement to notify your shareholders that something like this happened. But even without that, a lot of companies now today admit and they share information with one another, which is another great thing. There are lots of frameworks today for sharing information, even anonymously. You can share it. Okay, this is what happened to me. Be careful. So there's a lot of information out there today than there was before, which is again great. And social media, definitely, yes. Everybody, if there's a story today in one technical magazine, it now becomes all over the place. Not only for those who are in the biz.
Last question, maybe an interesting one. If you have to, what have been your best spending related to security learning? Let's say the best $100 you spent for something.
Oh, wow.
Was good for you.
Best $100.
Can be a book, can be a training, everything.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna give a very boring answer.
Give it a try.
And it's not my $100 even, so it's great. So I'm a CISSP. I'm a certified information system security professional.
Good.
Paid for by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Thank you. And the thing about being a CISSP is that so the CISSP is broken down into 7 domains. Let's call it like that, and not like half of them are about computers and technology. And the rest of them are about things like locks and protection, like physical security, or having I had to learn about regulations about fire extinguishers.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I thought, why would I ever need to know this kind of stuff? And then it hits you at one point that everything, all of this, are connected.
Yeah.
You have to think about security as this
big picture.
It's not about technology, it's about the business. So this is, for me, this is where I really learned this. So it's about the business. First think about the business and what you need to protect in the business, and then think how to protect it, and not the other way around.
Okay.
And I learned it there. Again, there are all things that I heard about before, or I came across, but only when I had to deal with boring day-to-day business management stuff, then it hits you that it's all connected, and that's what's really important. Other than that, there's a great book about the history of encryption by Simon Singh, and it tells you everything you need to know about encryption since cavemen to this day. And the reason I love Simon Singh, he has lots of books and lots of topics, is that it tells you he tells you a story, and I love stories. It doesn't teach you; it just tells you stories, and you learn from it. And it is one of my best books. I have it. I read it every 2 years.
Look at it. Never heard about it. That's cool. Okay.
We'll put it on the credits.
Yeah.
Can you let us know where can we find you, where can you find your practice, your business, and what are the next kind of action that you are taking for the next 2 or 3 months? I know that you are giving some keynotes and go ahead on that.
So first of all, obviously you can find us at www.securitude.com. Securitude, it's a very French thing.
C'est français. Securitude.
Securitude. It's a security. Well, if you're an Anglophone, we tell them it's a combination of security and attitude.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
If you're a French person, it's security and the ending, which is training and way of life. Let's call it like that. So it depends on who you're speaking. Anyway, securitude.com. On Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever. Speaking of YouTube, so on the 24th, I'm doing a presentation on cybersecurity for small businesses. It is going to be recorded by video. We are going to put it on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I would be very happy if everybody in the world will see that, because I think we have some very, very important messages to give.
Good stuff. Yeah, we'll definitely put it on the credit.
We'll put everything on the podcast. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Perfect.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience, background, views on this subject, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Yul.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you.
Cool.